I have said from the inception of the quadruple murders in Idaho, Moscow, that Ann Taylor has been cherry-picked by the trial court to represent Brian Kohlberger in order to have her work alongside of the prosecution hand in glove to get a conviction. The trial court, all the way to the magistrate judges, all the way to the trial judges, the state of Idaho police and the FBI are all conspiring against Brian Kohlberger to get a conviction. Ann Taylor, in the whole defense of Brian Kohlberger, have been instructed on what to do. The objective of Ann Taylor representing Brian Kohlberger is to ensure conviction, to ensure that the evidence never come to light, and to ensure that the evidence is never properly challenged. Now, a lot of y'all thinking, hey, that can't be happening in America. Well, let me tell you like this here. If you don't think this is happening in America, you better go see a psychiatrist and get you some medication. Because obviously, you are delusional and under an illusion. But today, I will dispel that illusion and delusion. Today, I'm about to prove to you that the outcome of Brian Kohlberger has already been predetermined, and that is a conviction by trial by jury or a plea bargain. Now, Shane Kellen, spit it for the public because it's about to go down. And if you're looking for a good horror, come to Idaho, Moscow.
Search this quickie. Let's say you're an incredibly corrupt cop or federal agent or whatever, and you got evidence illegally from an illegal wiretap or warrantless search or whatever. You know it'll be tossed out of court, as it should be. So what's a corrupt official to do? What they do is so formalized, there's a term for it used in training documents. Parallel construction, also known as evidence laundering. The term is most often applied to evidence gained through NSA warrantless surveillance. Then you work backwards to find some other way you could possibly have gotten that same information legally. So let's say you know it involves a certain vehicle. You have an informant call in a tip to the state police to pull over the vehicle. They do so, a search ensues, followed by an investigation, and that leads to the information they got illegally. And then they pretend that it was the initial traffic stop that led to them getting the information. One DEA agent told Reuters, "Parallel construction is a law enforcement technique we use every day. It's decades old, a bedrock concept." A lot of this happens through the Special Operations Division, or SOD. It collects data gained by warrantless eavesdropping on Americans from intelligence agencies or even foreign governments. Its operations are classified as national security and considered official secrets that cannot be revealed in an investigation, even if the investigation is a drug charge that has absolutely nothing to do with national security. In one case, a federal prosecutor was told that a Florida drug case began with a tip from an informant. Come to find out, the information had actually come from SOD, and the DEA instructed one of their informants to give the tip. The prosecutor said, "I was pissed. Lying about where the information came from is a bad start if you're trying to comply with the law, because it can lead to all kinds of problems with discovery and candor to the court." He ended up not filing charges. Good to know there are some good ones out there. But since all this is secret, there's no way of getting information on how often this happens or if it's happening in your specific case. It's one more example of how law enforcement does not deserve the benefit of the doubt. They will cheat routinely and even make it a part of their official training.
What you're looking at right now is the affidavit of probable cause to search Brian Kohlberger's mother and father residence in Pennsylvania. What I want to bring to my subscribers' attention is the fact that when you look at what Trooper Justin M. Leary and Trooper Brian V. Noah wrote concerning the surveillance on December the 27th, 2022, when they observed Brian Kohlberger walking toward their neighbor residence. Not once in here does that trooper state that Brian Kohlberger placed trash in his neighbor trash bins. Now, I just want to make that note because I have a theory about that. Now, let's look at the reason for the probable cause to search. When we look at the reason, it's so far-fetched. Based upon this, your affiants believe that Kohlberger is located inside the residence. Of course, you know he is inside the residence and in possession of items related to this investigation. What items would be related to this investigation that this man would still have? They were looking for the kabar knife. Now, as you can see, they done made up a far-fetched reason. Why would you believe that Mr. Kohlberger would still have the kabar? So let's get into this here. Come with me. I know this lawyer. She got in bed with the prosecutor. She got in bed with the FBI. She got in bed with the state and city police. She had a bunch of babies. And she told her baby daddies, I need some support. I need some support or I'm going to file child support. So the baby daddies got together and said, you know what? We're going to cut you a check. We just need you to trick with your client. We need you to waive the speedy preliminary hearing to give us time to get our story right, to give us time to convene a grand jury so our evidence and procedure cannot be scrutinized in the public eye. She said, okay, I'm down. You know how it is. I'm down for getting paid. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to expose that the DNA have been planted on Brian Kohlberger. I am going to prove conclusively that Ann Taylor know that DNA has been planted, but she is not seriously contesting it. So, let's do it.
Your DNA taken without your permission and used against you.
The police make mistakes, and I would rather not be on the unfortunate end of one of those mistakes.
Action News Jax investigates how companies can share your genetic information, even if you've never been a customer.
They can see what the likelihood is of whether you were involved in that criminal activity or not.
Priya, thank you. So I start with you because as somebody whose name gets mangled all the time, I'm sympathetic to it. With everything I just went through, what stands out to you, Priya, in terms of what you're impressed to see in this affidavit?
Well, I think you went through a very detailed analysis, and I'm glad that we now know, we as the public, know these more investigative details, but nothing is as definite into tying someone to a scene as DNA.
This is the very first press conference given by Moscow PD after the quadruple murders in Idaho, Moscow that occurred November the 13th, 2022. Chief Fry gave this press conference on November the 16th, 2022. John Weber, a reporter for KHQ, asked Chief Fry, how can you say the public is not in danger if you don't have a suspect? His answer didn't make sense. Another reporter asked the same thing. It didn't make sense. He just stated, I'm not going to expand on that. People, the only way you can say that is you have the suspect and you know that's your suspect. And people, I will declare today that Moscow PD, the FBI, and all law enforcement in Idaho, Moscow, had their sights on Kohlberger on November the 14th, prior to the press conference of November the 16th. I'm going to prove it. Have you noticed in his first press conference, not one reporter asked about any DNA evidence being found at the scene of the crime? Why, people? This is the very first press conference. Why wouldn't they ask? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Prior to them going live with the press conference, they was already told, don't ask about that. Don't even ask about it. Think, people. Why did not one ask about that DNA?
Chief Wright, John Webb with KHQ. On September 12th, there was a vandal alert that was sent out about a potential stabbing threat on Paradise Path. Does this have any connection with what we've seen so far?
Not that we know of it, but we're following up every lead. Every piece of information we get, we are following up to ensure that nothing has gone unturned. We want to have the individual identified, who is the suspect of this eventually. So we are literally looking into every aspect of everything.
And you guys have said repeatedly that there's no threat to the public, but we don't know who the suspect is. We don't know where he's at. How is there no threat to the public at this point?
Well, that's kind of an unknown. Like I said, we took the information that we had at the time, but we do need to be aware the individual is still out there, right? We need to be vigilant. We need to watch out for our neighbors. We're a community policing community. We've said that for years, and it's a community that watches out for each other. We need to continue to do that until we can close this off and make an arrest.
You say it's a targeted attack if you don't have a suspect.
Like I said, we take the totality of the situation. We try to make the best bit of information we can with everything that comes in, and then we make our decision off of that. So at this time, I'm not going to expand upon that. But like I've said, we do have a suspect out somewhere, and we are looking for that individual to solve this.
Documents Kohberger's attorney accusing the state of hiding its entire case by seeking to protect information about the genetic genealogy investigation they say led them to Kohberger.
This brings me back to parallel construction. Of course, Ann Taylor, the state of Idaho, is hiding their entire case because you have been paid to help them hide their entire case. You have been paid to play this charade, okay? See, you already knew, had you had the speedy preliminary hearing, a lot of this could have been exposed. But guess what? Waiving a speedy preliminary hearing was in effect waiving a preliminary hearing completely. This gave the prosecution time to continue to construct a lie as to how they got to Brian Kohberger. Ladies and gentlemen, pay close attention what I'm about to say. Have you noticed throughout history, and even now, mainstream media has always had some type of inside police source telling them things? But in this particular case, not one mainstream media outlet has ever came out stating a police inside confidential source has informed us that they found trace or touch DNA on a butter knife sheet. Have you noticed that? You know why? Because they never found any DNA on that butter knife sheet. That's play acting, okay? I'm going to tell you why they came up with this wild theory. See, they realized that they had the right killer, but they needed the evidence. Because he had left a clean trail, they said, you know what? We just going to plan it. We're going to have to come up with a story because we can't connect him. They need a way to connect him. And I'm going to prove that they planted that DNA. But so far, if you pay attention, I have already proved the DNA was never on the knife sheet. This is why they hide the whole STR workup, what lab they sent it to, the IgG report, and how they did it. Remember, the FBI jumped in allegedly and took the SMP from the private lab and started working it up. But I'm going to tell you something, people. They already knew who to look at by November. the 14th or 15th. Pay close attention, because what I finna get into is gonna surprise you. So let's get with it. This is a probable cause affidavit that they submitted December the 29th, 2023 to arrest Brian Kohlberger. But in this probable cause affidavit, they made a fatal mistake in revealing that they planted that DNA on Brian Kohlberger. This is just my conclusion based on the totality of the evidence. As you can see, on November the 25th, 2022, they was already looking for a white Hyundai Elantra, and they connected it on November the 25th, 22 to Brian Kohlberger. They then went to his home address, picked the lock, and went in and gathered DNA. I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit later on in a video. So they had plenty of time to get that DNA implanted. This is why they never mentioned DNA early on. They knew it wasn't none, but they knew that this was the guy, because I'm going to tell you how they knew that in a little bit. But let me finish this here. Now, they wanted you to believe that they became interested in a Hyundai Elantra in December. The first time I can hear them mention a Hyundai Elantra was December the 7th. Now, why did they want people to believe that they did not have a suspect when they did the first press conference on November the 16th? Why did they want the public to believe that? Well, there go more proof, people. Now, let me get into this planet DNA. The next video I'm going to show you happened December the 30th, 2022, when Moscow PD served the search warrant on Brian Kohlberger's apartment to search it. They knew he wasn't there, but when you watch the video, they got the theatrics, they knocking, talking about open up. They already got the keys, just go in the apartment. But they going through these theatrics, people, because they already know they're not going to find anything worthy, because they had already previously searched this apartment illegally. Just like they got keys now to go in, they probably had keys prior to this day to go in, or they picked the lock. I'm going to elaborate on that DNA later. But ladies and gentlemen, as you watch this video, you will see they keep it dark. Why not go into the house and show us what you're searching? They normally do this here, but see, they already know that they're not going to find anything of value, because what they had already got previously, they had already broken to his place and got the DNA to plant. So let's watch this video.
Go.
Police department search warrant. Come to the door. Police department search warrant. Come to the door. Good. One more. Police department search warrant. Come to the door. Open the door and do an announcement. Police department, show yourself. We have a search warrant for the building. Police department, show yourself. You're gonna do it the right side. No. All right, flashlight. Flashlight.
This brings me back to Brian Kohlberger's DNA being planted by Moscow PD or the FBI. We know by the first press conference of November the 16th, 2022, that they had a suspect, which was Brian Kohlberger. Yet at that very same press conference, Chief Fry kept saying that they didn't have a particular suspect. They just kept saying, we have a suspect, and then they say we don't really know who the suspect is. So we already know that he was lying, because the probable cause affidavit is where they slipped up at for arrest. In that probable cause affidavit for arrest, they clearly state that on November the 25th, they was looking for a white Honda. Yet, they didn't mention a white Honda to the public till December. This is crucial, people, because they had to make you believe that they didn't know who he was at the time, because they already knew that they broke into his apartment. But let me back up. His family, in my opinion, called in and gave a substantial tip to look at him. And they began to look at him. And then they got his cell phone tower records in November. Not in December, like they said, the 23rd, based on their probable cause for arrest. Don't pay that no mind. Once they triangulate his position with the CAS-VIS algorithm, they say, this is our guy. You know how they say that he brought his car in, backed up, looking for a parking space? That was stimulation recreated by the CAS-VIS system, okay? So now, once they found this out through the cell phone records, they realized this the guy. So they broke into his apartment and did a search, and they harvested his DNA and planted it. And while they was there, they was able to plant anything else that may connect him with the victims. This is why it was crucial, people, to pretend that they didn't know where he was at. But now check this out. They had plenty of time to do this here. When him and his dad went on a road trip back to Pennsylvania, they could have done it. They could have done it in November. They had the time, people. This is why it was very important for them to give a fake narrative. And here's another thing. If you already know that you was looking for Brian Kohlberger, and you already had his DNA, now I can see why you would wait till he go to his parents' home and pretend or wait to get some DNA out the trash can. But guess what? If you already went into his apartment illegally, you already knew you had him, but you couldn't use it. So this is where you begin to do your parallel investigation. Oh, we've had him under surveillance. We went to he went to his parents' home, and we got the DNA when he threw it out the trash can. But remember, people, they was pretending that when they stopped them in that traffic stop in December twice, that they didn't have him under surveillance. You see, people, the whole time they had you buy into the narrative. And this narrative kept you from seeing what I'm seeing. But nevertheless, that is why they call me Speak Van Holden 247. Even though I don't talk 247 and upload 247, when I bring it, I bring it. And guess what? We're not going to get into no meat and potatoes. We get into the supermarket, and we're going to get all the meat and potatoes, okay? So guess what? Stay tuned for the next video. Sounding off.